Hi, I'm Scott with Starkey Family, Fixing and Rigging Up. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out my channel quite a bit. Now today, what we're going to do is, back behind me is my wife's 2011 Chevrolet Traverse. It is an all-wheel drive car with a V6 engine in it. We're going to be changing out the anti-sway bar linkage and the front struts on the car. So let's get this video rolling. Okay, so the tools that you're going to need for this is, one, you're going to need a floor jack. Okay, you're going to need a 13/16 wrench. You're going to need an 18 millimeter, an 8 millimeter. You're going to need a small flat screwdriver. You see how this one here is designed? You don't have to have it, but this would actually make things a little bit easier for you. This is just like a little pry tool. Sometimes you can use it for like bolts, nails, trim pieces in a car. Okay, you'll need some extensions. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch drive. I'm also going to use a small breaker bar. Here is a 1/2 inch ratchet. You may end up needing to use a hammer. This right here is a 4-pound hammer. You're going to want to block your tires on the back wheel of the car because you're going to jack up the front. And I'm going to use an actual 4-way tire iron for the front wheels. Okay, so this is actually what I decided to go with for the price, because the dealership wanted way too much money. Okay, so anyways, I went with 2 Master Pro full struts. These are pre-assembled. These already have the spring and everything put together. So basically I pull them out of the box and they're ready to go on. So this is not just the strut itself. This is the full assembly. Okay, these right here I paid about $130 a piece for. Okay, so I also got this little kit that's a Master Pro kit. It is the sway bar linkage. Now I don't have to replace this, but I am going to replace this. Each one of these kits here were about $15. So you got about $30 in those right there. Now, as you see, the engine's not dirty on my wife's car. A little bit dusty maybe, but it's not bad at all. But before I like doing jobs like this, I like power washing. I like making sure everything is clean so everything goes better back together. Okay, so this is my wife's car, and as you see, the engine's not very dirty. It's just kind of dusty more than anything else. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the power washer because, well, I want everything to be really clean. So we're going to take the power washer. We're going to spray off the engine anyways. We're going to have to take this plastic apart right in this general area. And this whole housing here, we're going to have to take that out. So I'd like to go through and power wash everything. And then, of course, around the tire area, I'm going to power wash the old strut off because there's a bunch of oil everywhere from the old strut on both sides where they're blown. So anyways, we're just going to take the power washer and just try to clean up the area a little bit better. And then we're going to get to it. So let's go ahead and start power washing. Okay, so I am going to be starting up the car. If you wonder why, that's how I can turn the steering wheel back and forth, because I will have to be able to get in there to spray around the tire area. So let's go ahead and start the power washer up and get going. Okay, the first thing that you want to do before you jack the car up is you want to chock the back wheels on both directions. As you see, I've got one right there and one right there. Then I did the same thing on the passenger car or passenger side of the car. I chocked from the front and the back on the back axle also. Okay, now I forgot to tell you that you're also going to want to have a set of jack stands or some blocks of wood. And when I mean blocks of wood, big blocks of wood. Okay, so today we're actually going to use jack stands, but this is where you're going to put the jack stand at. You see this right here? That's the body mount area right in front of it. Okay, now you might say, well, I'm just going to use a jack. Well, that's nice and all, but the problem is when you use a jack, you're taking a risk of your jack blowing a seal and then the car coming down and crushing you if you're underneath of it. So I would always advise not to do that. Okay, if you don't have jack stands, for my semi truck, what I use is I took railroad ties and took a chainsaw and cut blocks out of railroad ties. Those make good blocks of wood to use underneath of a car. Otherwise, I would always try to get oak. Now, anyways, do not use your jack. You can use the jack to jack up the car, of course, but not to support it the whole entire time. That's a no-no. Besides, we're going to use the jack for another reason here later, which I'll be showing you. These are the kind of blocks that I cut down out of railroad ties with my chainsaw. So this right here is how this would actually go. But you want to make sure if you do this, make sure that the blocks of wood are stable and they're not going to kick out from underneath the car. Now, for those of you that are new to my channel, on my videos, I like to use the tools that most people would actually own. Okay, I try to steer clear of using expensive tools on purpose. Do I own expensive tools? Yes. But do most people own expensive tools? No. But I want people to be able to watch these videos and to do these jobs that I'm showing how to do using common tools that most people would own. Okay, so let's just make that clear right off the bat. Now, you can use a 7/8 socket if you want to take this hubcap off. I am just going to use a 4-way. These are very loose to begin with. You just go around. You don't want to over tighten them because you'll strip them out and then you'll lose your hubcap going down the highway. Basically, these all come out so far. You're just going to go around in a little circle. You don't have to do any special pattern with these. Now, since these will only come out so far when you're turning them, you may have to go back around one more time before it actually comes off. Very simple. Now, you can do this one of two ways. The way that I normally do this is, let me show you. You see that I've got a little block of wood back here under the back of the tire. I just put it up there. I've already got the car jacked up. It's no big deal. This is the way that I normally do everything. But if you don't have extra blocks of wood to do this, go ahead and just loosen your lug nuts while they're on the ground, while the tire is on the ground before you jack it up. Otherwise, you can just put a block of wood there. This is what happens. No big deal. Okay, So I got all the lug nuts loosened up. So let's go ahead and take it off. This is why I use a 4-way. You can literally spin the lug nuts off. Now if you have air tools, then this can go quite a bit faster. Now, you take the block out from under it, take the block out of your way, and simply take the tire and pull it out of your way. Okay, so before we start anything on here, while we've got the tire off, we're going to go through and spray all the hardware. So you've got 2 large bolts over here. Now, you did see me power wash it, but this stuff is really nasty. That's where this strut is actually blown and all the oils just come down and stuck to everything. And we got this right back here, because we're going to have to disconnect this line. We may have to up here too, I'm not sure. Okay, so that's about all we have to disconnect back here on the bottom. So while we're letting this penetrating oil do its job, we're going to go back up to the top and start taking the plastic off over top the engine compartment. Okay, so I've got several of these little pull-up clips here, right here, that I've got to take off to get this plastic off. So I want to show you how these actually come out, okay? Now, you can spin these things around. It's no big deal. You can spin them around. But on one proportion, you'll see a little cutout, okay? You just simply can put a screwdriver up under there and flip them up. Or if you have a tool like this, get up under there, and it's just like a nail, okay? So all you're doing is you're going to pull this up to where you can reach it, grab a hold of it, and it's plastic, and if you can see this, pull it up. It's all that is, just a piece of plastic there. Then this bottom part here, it just actually comes up also. Okay, so how this actually works is this is the center and this is the inside. This is the top. It only goes in one way. Okay, so a little bit of force, a little bit of force here. You got to pop that back in. Okay. So basically what happens is you're putting this down in there, which squeezes this flared out section out, okay? Well, you could simply grab a hold of it and it would pull straight out like it did before. So when you push this down inside, that splits this apart more, locking this into place. So basically all you're doing is you're going to take this like a nail and pry it out. Very, very simple, okay? You don't have to pop it all the way out, but like I did, I just wanted to show that you can pull it back in there, but normally they only come up a little more than 1/4 of an inch. Pull in, or push in, dig them out, And they can be a little bit of a pain sometimes when they lock into place. They pull out, push right back in. Okay. Okay, so we have this one. You've got another one right here. Same thing. Make sure you do not lose these. You don't want to lose these, okay? I'm going to come over here to the opposite side of the car. You got the same one in the same position. This one here popped apart also. Now this little pry tool that I showed you, about anywhere that they sell screwdrivers, you can get one of these. It's not an expensive tool. Heck, you can probably pick one up for about $5. Nothing major. Now, let's move back to the other side of the car. We're going to start everything on the passenger side and work ourselves around. Okay, so we get to the molding here. You're going to grab a hold of it, pull it towards you a little bit, and then pull up. This is what you've got on the other end. Just a little tab. Very simple. You're just going to have to take off a little section. Just the first section should be sufficient. So now let's go over to the opposite side. Okay, so we're on the driver's side. Grab a hold of it. Pull it towards you a little bit. Pull up. Same thing. Okay, the next thing. This right here is on the passenger side of the car. If you're going to have to jump start your car, this would be the grounding rod. So you put the negative cable here. But it needs to get out of the way. So you're going to use a 15mm socket. It's not going to take very much force. So you can do an open-end wrench or even an adjustable wrench. Okay, you're going to have to take your wiper arms off. Now this one here, the clip is actually missing. What happened to it? I have no idea, because I've never had this off. I'll show you on the next wiper how to take this backing off. But for now, let's go ahead and do the driver's side. This is also a 15mm socket. I'm using a small ratchet and small extension. Take it easy when you're turning it. Okay, we're going to wait on that right there before we take that arm off, because we're actually going to shut the hood to wiggle this apart. So let's go ahead and go to the next wiper. Okay, this wiper here is for the passenger side. It's actually kind of a pain in the butt to get to because, well, just reaching it. So basically, you don't need any tools for this. It just clips up. Very simple. And then you're going to take your 15mm once again. You don't have to use a bunch of force on it. Okay, so basically all you're going to do is you're going to pull the blade up, and you're going to wiggle this little by little up and down until this actually breaks free. Okay. Let's get in there. Okay. Then once it's free, you just lay it back down on the windshield very calmly, because we'll have to raise up the hood to take it back out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to raise the hood. That way we can pull the wiper arm out. Now, before I go any farther, I want to show you something here. This is important, okay? If you do not have any dirt on your windshield, I do. I don't know if you can see that or not. That shows where your wiper arm actually lays. Perfect. Now, if your windshield is absolutely clean, you're going to want to lay a piece of tape on your windshield right next to your wiper blade. Because when you go to put this back on, you need to know what position to put your wiper blade. Well, I can actually look on the dirt on the actual windshield here. Can you see that? That's where the wiper was actually laying. So that's very important. Okay, on this wiper, you may as well just go ahead and shut your hood, because you're going to have to kind of get back here a little bit. You're just going to go ahead and do the same thing. Wiggle it free. Okay, it's popped up. So now go back inside your car, pop the hood. And pull it out. Make sure you take your wiper arms and your right side and your left side, like your driver's side and passenger side, lay them on that side of the car that you took them off, because these are not interchangeable. One is actually larger than the other. Okay, so now we got a bunch of little clips all along this bottom of this plastic here. Just get them kind of spun around where you need them. Now make sure you put these clips somewhere where you're not going to lose them. Oh, that one just popped up by itself. Yep, I lost the top part of that. Luckily, I'm on concrete, so I'll be able to find it. Found it. Okay, so your hood release, you see it's right here? That's the cable for it. You're gonna pop that out right there. And then underneath here, make sure that don't get jammed up. Okay, I wanted to show you that there is another clip right here. Basically, you stick your fingers in here and just pull it up. There, it just goes down inside that hole. On the other side, on the passenger side, you just take your fingers up and pull it out of this hole also. Okay, so now we're ready to take that plastic out. Okay, there's one side. I almost forgot. We got to take the fuse box cover off, just temporarily. Now, we just take this plastic out. Okay, we've got that cover off. So now, we'll make sure we don't get anything down inside of here, any nasty stuff, because, well, this is your fuse block, so we're just going to put that cover right back on there. And now, I want to show you this. We now have access to the top of the strut on both sides. Right there. And a little bit more dirt we need to clean off, right? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we're back down on the bottom. So we're going to wipe this off a little bit. We have a clip right here. Just going to get underneath of it. Pull that out. All it is just ribbed. It looks like a little screw. Nothing major. Now we got a little bit of oil here to scrape off, so we can see what this one is. Okay, so we're going to take the anti-sway bar linkage apart now. So let's put this wrench right here. That is an 18 millimeter. And then right here in the center, we're going to do another one. That is an 8 millimeter wrench. Okay? So the whole purpose is we're going to knock this right here loose. Then this will hold it stabilized so nothing will turn. That's why it should go anyways. Nice. Okay, so let's put that there. This is actually coming apart a little bit easier than I thought. Penetrating oil must have did a really good job in here. Now if they come off like this, unhurt or anything like that, you can actually reuse these. I always expect the worst, so that's why I actually picked up the other ones. Okay, so we're going to go do the lower section, but I'm going to show you what the lower section actually looks like in here. So it's right here, so I'm going to put the wrench on this side of it. So let me go ahead and start on that. Yeah, my wrench is stuck on here. There we go. I should be able to turn this off by hand now. Okay. That one's off. So I've already bought the part. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Because my luck, I'll have it on here and it'll break. Okay. So now we're going to go for these 2 bolts here. So let's go ahead and spray them again with PB Blaster again. This is the pent ring oil I've been using. Okay, so on the bolt side, we are putting a 13/16 on there, and we're just going to let that thing hang on there. Okay, so this really isn't long enough. I mean, I could probably pull it and get it, but I am actually going to put a bar on top of this binder bar here, or breaker bar rather. So to make it a little bit easier with leverage, I'm just going to take it easy. Yeah, that was pretty tight. I would advise using a bar, putting a bar over top of your bar to make the leverage a little bit easier. Okay, that's broken free. So let's go ahead and take this one here off. Okay, you remember towards the beginning of the video, I was telling you about the jack stand and not to use your jack underneath here. Well, now it's time to use your jack. Okay, so now we're at the point where once we take this bolt out, this is going to drop. Okay, it's going to just kind of fold over a little bit. So basically what we want to do is, because the goal is we need to protect this brake line. This brake line, well, it could get snapped very, very easy. So basically what we're doing is we're going to take the jack. You see the bottom right here on the rotor? Well, it can't roll forward or backwards. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to set this on the bottom of this A-arm and on the bottom of the rotor here. This will keep everything from dropping. Okay? So let's go ahead, and I've already got this jacked up, so let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so let's take the hammer. Okay. Okay, nuts off. Now the bolt. So this is where you're going to watch your fingers very carefully. Okay, nothing moved. That's good. So this right here is basically what this is going to look like. Here's the splines. Here's the threads. These splines will go on one side, and your nut's going to screw up on the other. Okay, so now your strut is loose. So the only thing holding it in place are 3 bolts up here on the top. So now it's time to go up to the top. Okay, so before we start, we're going to take some of this PB Blaster. Okay, so while we're up here at the top, I want to show you this. You might say, well, is there a chance that I could get my strut on there in the wrong position? And I'm going to tell you, No, not really. Because the spacing on all these, the way it looks, it's only going to fit in one position. Now, if you buy a strut that's got 4 studs on it, there is a hole here for a 4th stud. But the factory one is 3 studs. I'm not sure what the replacements I have yet are because I haven't even looked at them yet. So let's just go ahead and take this off. Okay, so let's loosen this one here up. And the strut is dropping. Oh, and let me tell you, the strut is heavy. And that is how you pull a nasty blown strut out. So now, guess what? It's time to put a new one in, right? Okay, so here's the old parts laying on the floor. There's the strut and there is the sway bar linkage. So let's go ahead and open these up and see what we got here. Okay, let's see here. We got some instructions that basically say blah 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 blah. Okay, so let's do a comparative here of what we got. So basically, well, they're about the same setup. The only main difference is this has a nut on the very back to tighten it down instead of using this right here on the front. So this right here most likely be a lot nicer to use. Okay, so I'm going to call that an upgrade from the factory. So let's go ahead and open this one up. Okay, so we got some instructions here. Tells basically how to remove the old strut. Yep, I think we already covered this, right? Okay. So let's do a comparative. These are a little bit heavy here, so bear with me a little bit. Okay, they look pretty well identical to me. Other than the color, I really don't see a big difference on it. Tops look similar. Got a little boot there in the middle. Everything looks good to me. So let's go ahead and put this in. Okay, so I noticed one thing. The positioning of the bolts does not line up with the front of this, where it actually bolts on. So we actually have to rotate this. And I'll tell you, it's very, very tight. So we're going to put a bar in there. We're going to hold the spring. Jeez. And we're just going to keep on rotating it until we get it to where we need it at. Okay. Almost there. Okay, that's pretty close. So we're going to go ahead and put it on now. Okay, I want to show you something that I just noticed. Do you see on the bottom hole? Well, the aftermarket one has an adjustment where you can actually align this differently. Okay, so you can tilt the wheel. Whereas the factory one is not like that. So, if you buy these, most likely you will want to go and get an alignment. But, if you take a tape measure, measure the distance to the weld, okay, see where it is, and compare it to the bracket on the new one, which in this case, they're actually the same. Then you only have to go from this edge to the center of where the bolt would lie on the factory one. Okay? So in my case, you see where I'm at, where center is. All I have to do is take my tape measure and come back here and line it up the same identical way. So that's what I'm going to do. Just tap it over whichever direction. You can tap on your rotor there, just not super hard. Come back with your tape measure. Just measure the center point, and I'm there. So I will not have to do an alignment. Oops. Let me go and grab some anti-seize real quick. Okay, so now all we need to do is tighten everything up. Okay, so let's go ahead and tighten these up. So we're going to tighten up the top one first. Now the reason this is wobbling is because we haven't got the bolts on the top tight yet, but we're getting there. Okay, time to use the bar. Watch your fender. Okay, so that's tight. Let's go ahead and tighten up the bottom one. Reason why we're tightening up the top first is if we tried tightening up the bottom, then this whole assembly is going to move again on me. So we tighten up the top and then we tighten up the bottom. Okay, so that's tight. Okay, so let's move up to the top and we'll draw this strut up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the jack first, and I'm going to jack the strut up a little bit more. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to the top. Okay, so we're at the top. I'm putting my rag back up here so I don't scuff up my wife's car. So now what we're doing is, as you see how the studs are raised up through, and you can see right here how the housing is flush with the car. That's because I put the jack underneath the rotor and started jacking it up a little bit. You only want to do that just to the point where you can tell that there's tension. Okay, that's all you need to do. If you have air tools, you can use them on this to run it down, but when you get there, you want to use your hands to tighten this down. But if you remember, these are like really long. Okay, that one airs down. We're not going to fully tighten it yet. Okay, now I'll go ahead and make them tight. Go around it one more time. Okay, so now the strut is fully on. All we have to do now is put the linkage on for the anti-sway bar. Okay, so on the new linkage, the new sizes are going to be 3/4 inch for the outer nut, and then this one right here, I don't know if you can see it where it's black or not, that new size is going to be a 5/8. Keep in mind, this is built differently than what the factory one is. So let me take the nut off. We're going to run that back there. I'm going to use the open end on this. It'd actually be kind of difficult to use a ratchet on this. You probably could with a swivel, but this right here looks like the best tool for the job. You might want to make sure when you're doing this to try to use a wrench that's fairly thin, like this one here. Otherwise, if it's a thick one, you might end up getting it locked in between here. Okay. Now I'm going to use the boxed end to lock it down. Okay. Okay, so there's the top, or the bottom. Now let's do the top. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the top of this. Now, before I put this on there, I wanted to show you, this is, if you can see that, you see that blue ring in there? This is actually a lock nut that we're using. Okay, I guess we're going to lower it down a little bit, aren't we? There we go. So I had to take full tension off, so I lowered the jack down. And then just had to pull this up just a little bit there. Come on, get it on there. There you go. Let me go ahead and grab a socket for this. Okay, let's go ahead and use a socket. So we'll see if that wrench back there even moves. Yeah, it moves a little bit, not a whole lot. It's raising up just a hair. There it goes. Okay. So we got that together. Now all we have to do is come through, put the ABS line back on here. So we're just going to shove that back up through the line, or back through this hole. Maybe. I'm not sure if it even fits. There we go. And then we got the one right here. Okay. Guess what? We have this together now. So now, let's just go and put the tire on. Okay, so I've got the tire rolled over here. Let me grab the lug nuts here real quick. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this tire on real quick. So I'm just going to put the top one on first. Then I'll put the bottom on. Lug nuts, or the lug nuts and studs already have anti-seize on them. So I don't have to re-smear that on them. It's always important to do that. If you don't have anti-seize, use some grease or oil. Okay, let me grab my little tire chalk here. So I'm putting it on the opposite side because, well, we're tightening up the wheel, so it's going in a different direction now. Oops. Okay, there's one. We do the opposite of wherever we start at. Okay. Here, I'll shine a little bit of light there. How about that? I started this a little bit later in the day, so I'm running into nighttime now. This is a very long job, but okay. If I didn't have to stop and do the videos with this, you know, stop and start, and then I have children also, then this would be done fairly quickly. Each side on here, if I wasn't filming, if I was left alone, you know, where my kids weren't coming in and everything, which I don't mind them, I love my kids. But this whole job here, shoot, maybe a little over a half an hour job, if that. Shouldn't even be that long, really. That's per side. So the tire's on. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the driver's side on the car. But basically all you have to do is repeat this whole process. It's the same identical thing. Same thing. So keeping in mind that I'm going to be repeating this process, I'm keeping the jack stand underneath of this. So I can't really tighten down my tire all the way. And I can't put my hubcap on. Okay, because I have to tighten up the lug nuts. Now, if you're doing this, I would highly recommend doing this as a set. You really don't want to replace one strut at a time, because you'll have one good strut with one new spring, and then you're going to have on the opposite side one old strut with an old spring. So when you're going down the highway, you know, one side of your car is going to hit the bumps and take it, and the other side may bounce. And it would really mess up your ride of the vehicle going down the highway. So, like I said, I recommend doing both sides. But, you know, ultimately, I don't own your car, so you do what you feel that you need to. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've done this yourself to save yourself some money. That's why I actually do this. I'm Scott with Starkey Family, Fixing and Rigging Up. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've actually taken what I've showed you and applied it to where you're actually able to save yourself some money and learn how to do all this stuff yourself. Okay? Jobs like this, there really is no good reason why you need to pay a garage to do this. If you're healthy, if you're able, it's cheaper for you to go buy a cheap box of tools and do this yourself. As you see, everything that I'm using here is everything that is cheap and available to you. For the tools that I've bought and for this job, you could go out and shoot, you could, for that matter, you could go to Walmart and buy all this stuff really cheap and do this yourself and save you several hundreds of dollars. A job like this, I'll tell you, depending on the shop, they could charge anywhere from $50, maybe $100 an hour doing this. So just keep that in mind. You know, are you paying someone to do a job on your car? Are you paying a guy to do a job on your car and lollygag while he's doing it? You don't know if you're not being there watching it. So you all take care and have a great night, and catch me in my next videos. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you.